Hello there, welcome back to Technology Innovation Hub. It's going to be a continuation of the Oracle architectural journey. Let me share on the screen. We have been discussing the large pool. So let's complete the discussions on large pool. This is what we discussed. We did the hands-on on passengers as well. So up next, we need to understand when a request comes. When a request comes to Oracle database in a shared server environment, how it's going to work. So let's go to those steps one by one. But before that, I think let's do another hands-on. After that, let's come back to that. This hands-on, I think we need to get a basic understanding about the sizing of the large pool. Sizing of the large pool, how to determine the size of the large pool. Even for share pool, I didn't mention about sizing because those things are supposed to be discussed on tuning. We are going to have a separate session for tuning the memory structures separately. There will be a session coming in. So in that, let's discuss in more detail. But for the time being, just to get an idea, let's see the sizing of large pool. Now, this is from Oracle documentation, and I think this is from 90C documentation. Yeah, it is. No, this is release 21C. That's fine. It's okay. There's not a big difference. And as I mentioned, this information are coming under tuning the sharp pool and large pool. So let's not deep dive those things. Tuning we'll do separately. But just to get an idea about the size of the sharp pool, the large pool actually, sizing of the large pool. So what they say, configuring the large pool and sizing the large pool, this is what. So very basically, we can run few queries and get the idea. But if I just go to this node, what it say when storing shared server related UGA, user global area, in the large pool, we know this. In a shared server environment, if large pool is configured, UGA information will be in the large pool. Otherwise, it will be in the shared pool. The exact amount of UGA that Oracle database uses depends. Yeah, it depends on the current situation, because if the database is configured in shared server method, if your sessions are shared sessions, then what's going to happen, depending on the number of shared server sessions, the memory usage definitely going to be changed. So that's what it says. Memory requirement depends on how much it is being used. Currently, it is being used. But we can think about average size. What is this? Oracle database collects the statistics on memory by a session and stores, yeah, $B session stat. Information collected via the sessions, how much of memory usage, how much of memory is used by the session. Those things are stored in $V session stat. So that's what's going to happen. And table, yeah, this table is telling the column names. We can think about these things. Okay, let's say if I just describe VDollar session stat, I think this is where name, the name column. We can just describe it, describe this what. So the name column should be the value, right? Not the name column. Let's see. Where name is, yes, some value, the value column. The value, and where name like session UGA. Yeah, from the UGA, we are counting how much of memory in use. That is what this query does. And what the documentation is telling, there are two values we can think about. One is the session UGA memory and the max memory. Current usage, it can be taken from this, and this is for a certain period, depending on the usage, it can go high, so what is the max? Currently, it might not be that much, but in the history, a certain time period, it may be use more memory than currently in use. So what we can do, we can just run this query Let's run this query to get an idea. If I just run this one, select some value bytes, will be in bytes. Yeah, total memory for all sessions currently connected, and name like UGA. So it should be the share server environment. And in my case, I am having this much of in bytes. So it's very small. KB is like 32 MB. It depends, but actually in my environment, it is a dedicated server environment. But this is will be much more significant in a shared server environment. So this is currently in use. So likewise, you can get a max value also. Maybe not now, maybe at a peak moment, the values may be higher. Let's check the max value, session UGA max. So that's count to 62 MB. So you can get an idea how much of for this environment in your production also. If it is shared server, you can run this query and get an idea. This is the average, not the average. This may be currently, this is the highest. So you can think about a middle value like setting around 50 MB, 55 MB likewise. So you can get an idea about how much of large pool should I set likewise. And we can see here the explanation is there memory for all, memory for max, and they are also telling the result of the first query likewise it is explained. You finally mention use the result of either queries to determine the correct size of shared pool. The first value is likely to be the better estimate than the second, unless if you expect the session to reach the maximum simultaneously. Yeah, or if it is always reaching the maximum, you can think about putting the max value. Otherwise, the best is to come in between value, average likewise. So then there's another one. It is been mentioned the $V HGA stat. So from this also we can think about the column call. There's a pool. Verify the pool, shared pool or large pool. What is this? Verify the pool, shared pool or large pool in which memory for object resides by checking the pool column in HGA stat. So that is another way to think about, which pool is heavily used, whether it is used in shared pool or large pool. So set a value for large pool size initialization parameter, the minimum value, okay, fine. So that also, to get an idea, we can say describe like this. And you can see the pool. If you just run select star from this one, that's okay. So at the moment you can see, since I don't have a shared server configured here, so I'm having very less large pool, but somewhat shared pool usage also there. So anyway, I haven't configured the large pool. There is no value at the moment. My large pool value is 0. So, but you can get an idea from this. So here you can see shared pool, certain usages are there. So this is the reason is I don't have large pool defined. So everything is going on shared pool, but this is a clear indication that you need to define large pool, because everything depends on shared pool at the moment, because large pool is not defined. So if shared pool is running out of this space, because shared pool is for everything, no, not only for the shared servers, it is even in dedicated server. I mean, library cache, those things will be execution plans, everything is stored there. So it's better to define large pool in that case. At the moment I am having show parameter large. See, I don't have any value large pool size. And another one we can check, select server from $V session. So my all connections are dedicated because you can see the server dedicated connections. I don't have a shared server defined here, but we can say show parameter large. So you can simply set auto system set This is not automatically managed parameter, it's a manual one. You can think about a value like, okay, let's say 100 MB. I'm just setting randomly. So it's done. You can see if you round up for the granule, we have learned the granule. So it has taken 112 M. So that's the current value. And if we just run this one again, let's see whether any. Select star from SGStat. The last query was to check SGStat here. So still it is not, we have to make some connections. Just because you set the launch pool, if there are no shared server connections, it will not utilize. So even if you, let's say, shut down, some configuration problem is there. Let's see. That is not necessary, but you know, in the last session we said that parameter, Exadata parameter, so it might cause the database to misbehave, because normally shut down immediate, it won't wait for the transition, it will just roll back them and it should terminate. So that's why you have to be careful when you're using the hidden parameters. Exadata is a hidden parameter. So, but we did for learning anyway. I didn't revert that parameter. It is almost true at the moment. So better, I also better revert that one. Otherwise, there can be some unexpected behaviors in the database like this. Immediate should not give that message. It should shut down without, irrespective of the unin transactions. So let's shut it down and try to start it up. So let's not deep dive these things at the moment. Let's consider these things under tuning. This is, we are just getting familiar with the memory structures and architecture of a database architecture. Of course, we are, it's the phase 2 of architecture kind of, that's why we are deep diving the memory structures, but we are not touching upon the tuning details. Okay, let's start up. Fine, let's run the query again. So now you can see, I think earlier there was, now you can see free memory because I have defined large pool. Earlier the output was what? There was, but this one, buffers. Yeah, free memory was there, but 143. Yeah, 143. What is the current value now? Yes, now it has more because I have allocated large pool. So because I set the size for the large pool, 112 MB. Yeah, so that's why we have more pre-memory on the large pool. But let's understand these things on the networking as well on shared server configuration. So we not now. So I hope you got the idea about large pool memory allocation. Using the queries, you can find out the current usage and you can get an understanding about how to set the value on the large pool. So that is the expectation here, not to get into these shared server configurations and deep dive in shared server connections or deep dive in these what are the details like name and all. So we'll do those things later. Fine. So that is that, and now we can go to our next step. So let's try to understand how these connections are handled when it's come to a shared server environment with large pool. So now we know the memory structures within the large pool, caches, memory caches within the large pool memory structure. So these are the caches. We have IO buffer area, user global area, deferred pool, or the pass ingest, request queue, response queue. So let's see what is request queue and response queue. Still we didn't study that one, but I have mentioned briefly in one of the previous explanations. So this is what's going to happen. So when a user process wants to connect, so user process will be initiated from the client end. So that request will come, username and password, then whatever the connection method, TNS or whatever method will be used. And this is dedicated. So dedicated we always know is one-to-one. User process will be initiated on the client side, then a dedicated one-to-one connection will be initiated to the from the server side, then a dedicated server process will be started. So that we know. When it comes to shared server, things are getting changed. So user initiates and a connection request will be sent. Now in this case, there is no dedicated, it's going to be a shared server. But in a shared server environment, the very first thing is what? Dispatcher. So now here we don't have dispatchers in dedicated server environment. The incoming request will be detected by the listener actually. So then listener will initiate the it will go to the server process, and likewise listener will initiate the server process, and server process will be checking on with the Oracle database server, and likewise the verification will happen. So let's see those things. This process we will see more detail on the networking session. But here the objective is to explain how it happens in a shared server environment. So in a shared server environment, there's a process called dispatcher who works in collaborative with the listener process. So the initially the request will be taken by the dispatcher in collaborative with the listener process, because we have the port number, maybe 1521 is the default, and the request comes with the port number. So dispatcher will undertake the request, and then what's going to happen? The dispatcher will place the request in a area called request queue, which is in the large pool, which should be in the large pool. Because if we haven't defined large pool in a shared server environment, now what's going to happen? It's going to use the shared pool, which is not a best practice. So in a shared server environment, it is highly recommended to configure the large pool. So dispatcher will place the request on request queue, just another memory area, which is in the order of arrival, first in, first out order. It will store the request, and then what's going to happen? That's the step number 2 actually. Then what's going to happen? The shared server process, a relevant shared server process, which is already initiated. There are, we can configure how many shared server processes and all, and this will undertake the request, or undertake the request means it will pick the request from request queue. So now there's a request, this fellow user want to connect, came via dispatcher, in the request queue the connection is there. So in the order of arrival, this server process will take that request from the request queue, fix the request, that is step number 3. Then what's going to happen? A lot of things going to take place after that, because now this request may be a connection request. You want to connect, or maybe a connected user just sending a SQL query. If the session is already established, thereafter in the shared server environment, the shared server process has to handle all the incoming requests. No? So let's say if it is a SQL query, let's say it's a select statement. So then the shared server process has to go to check the past execution plans are available, and further it has to check whether data is available in the buffer cache. So that's why the data is there. And if the data is not available in the buffer cache, it has to go and do the input output read from the DC, it has to fetch the data. So likewise, a lot of operations will take place on step number 4. And further, the very important one is the information should be shared, whatever the process information. If it is a new execution plan, and it should be aware, I mean, those information should be available and accessible for the rest of the shared server process as well. Because in the shared server environment, we can't specifically say this particular server process will pick this request. Whichever shared server process is available, freely available, it will pick the request from the request queue. So that's why those information should be available. Now, for example, let's say if shared server process 1 picks this information, and the data fetching part may be done by shared server process 2. There is no restriction like that. But dispatcher is dedicated, that's true. Now this request is undertaken by this particular dispatcher, and rest of the process also should continue with the dispatcher. That's true. But the shared server process, it can shared again. The shared server process 1 may check the availability of the execution plan in the library cache. But shared server process 2 may fetch the data. So therefore, there should be a common place now to achieve the ultimate goal of processing that particular SQL query request. Now shared server 1 is doing one part, shared server 2 is doing another part. So finally, both things has to work together now, because now it is split. The work is split between two shared server processes. So that's why there should be a common place to share those information. So that place is the user global area. So that's why this link is there. So in the user global area, all shareable information which is needed across multiple shared server processes will be stored in the user global area. That's why this link is there. And after that, shares information. That's what it says. And after that, what's going to happen? The relevant request will be placed. Now it is being processed, and now the data, whatever the SQL requirement is being now done. And once it is done, what's going to happen? The process information or the process message should be sent to the user. Then that information will be placed in the response queue. Now the request queue is the incoming request. Once everything is processed and done, the response of that particular query may be failed or may be unable to fetch or may be success or whatever. Or if it is a connection request, unable to connect, no privileges, likewise, whatever the response message will be placed in the response queue. And finally, this response queue, the message will be picked by dispatcher, the relevant dispatcher who initiated this connection. So that's why, because this information cannot be fetched by a different dispatcher. So dispatcher who initiated the request is keeping the track till that particular process ends. Request ends. Request initiated and ending also should be taken place via that particular dispatcher. But shared server processes, no. In between the process, multiple shared server processes can contribute to process that particular SQL statement, an intermediate process. That is a different thing. But a dispatcher, if it is dispatcher 1, yes, the response also should be handled by dispatcher 1. Yeah, so step number 6, sends the response. Yes, from this response, it will be taken by the dispatcher. And ultimately, I should be shared to the relevant user process. So what is the result? Returns the response. That is what. So that is altogether the steps. And we can go through the same steps, I think, in the technical documentation that here it is there. It is just the same steps I explained. So you can see a request from a user is a single API call that is understood from MySQL. That's true. In a dedicated server environment, one server process handles the request for single client process, one-to-one. Each server process uses system resources, including CPU. That's a dedicated environment, because dedicatedly a server process is being initiated on behalf of the user request, on behalf of the user system. In a shared server environment, following occurs. That is what I explained. So same thing is explained here. The very first step number 1 is client application sends the request to the database instance, and the request is received by dispatcher. So that's what step number 1. Request is received by the dispatcher. So it's the same thing that I explained, but let us go through again. Step number 1, client request will be placed, and the dispatcher will be undertaking the request. That is step number 1. And step number 2, the dispatcher places the request in the request queue in the launch pool. Step number 2, in the launch pool, it will place the request. That's what request queue. And step number 3, the request queue, the request is picked by the next available shared server, process. The shared server process checks the common request queue for new requests, picking up the request on first in, first out, FIFO method, first in, first out. And one shared server process picks up one from the request queue. Yes, particular shared server process at the moment it is being picked. It will pick the request from the request queue. So that is step number 3. And in this case, let's say it is this server process picks up the request, shared server process, step number 3, shared server process. And the further explanation in step number 4 comes. So what step number 4? This is step number 4, the processing of the request. Now it's shared server process undertook the request, and now it has to process what to do with the statement. What is the request? Whether it's a data fetch or whatever request has to continue to process. Now what is this? If you read this step number 4 slowly, because a lot of things are happening in step number 4, the shared services make all necessary calls to the database to complete the request. Yeah, all database calls to complete the request. First, the shared server process access library cache. That is to check whether existing plan is there. It checks whether table exists. Yeah, I mean privileges, that semantic check, syntax check. Actually, the semantic check, syntax check is done. Most of the things are by this time. But if it is a new statement, yeah, passcode has to be generated. No, whether yeah, correct privileges and so on. Next, the shared server process access the buffer cache. That is to check the data is available. Whether particular data, now let's say if the execution plan is found in the library cache, it's a cache hit. So then shared server process continues to check whether this particular data is already been fetched, so it is been available. Then if it is available, it becomes a cache hit for the buffer cache also. If the data is not there, shared server process access for this. Okay, it's a cache miss for the buffer cache, data buffer cache. So go on and do IO operation and fetch it from the disk. Then a different shared server process can handle each request call. This is the same thing that I explained. So there is no rule call. The particular shared server process should continue to serve that particular request which is taken from the request queue. There is no rule like that. Any available shared server process will be able to handle the request. Let's say a particular request may be distributed across multiple shared server processes. Therefore, request to pass the query, fetch the first row, fetch the next row, and close the result may each be processed by different shared server processes, the same thing that I explained, because a different shared server process may handle each database call. The user global area must be shared memory area, as the UGA contains information about each client session. That's true. The UGA contains information about each client session and must be available to all shared server processes, because any shared server process may handle sessions from DB call. That's why, because there are session related information, session related data, so those things should be available in the user global area. We learned that. I think if I again go back to the previous explanation in our shared server explanation, I think we did that one. So in the UG only session related information is stored in shared server connections, not like dedicated server connections. So that's now is very clearly explains here why it is happening. Okay, let's quickly go to that step also. It will be useful for you to at this level. So this is what I am telling, this one. I mean, remember, in our shared server, now this is dedicated. No? So in a shared server environment, the UGA is not within the PGA. The UGA is in the large pool. Shared server, you can see UGA is in the large pool. So these all the shared memory, session related information, sort area, and those things are in the large pool. So you can see large pool, session memory related information. So this is what they are talking about in a shared server environment. This is a shared area across multiple shared servers. That is why it's very important. Right? Hope you got the idea. Now let's jump back to our explanation. Yeah, so this is then that is step number 4. Yes, so now step number 4 happens. That's what it says. This is shared across, shares information across user global area. So step number 5 now is clear, places the response. If you go back here, step number 5, after the request is completed, shared server process places the response in the call-in dispatchers response queue. Whoever who initiated the request, the same dispatcher will continue to complete the request as well, and that dispatcher will be taking the response. I mean, it will place the response from the server process. It will place it in the response queue. This is an indication that each dispatcher is. I mean, we have different response queues, so those things we are not going to discuss in detail here. So, and response queues in the large pool. That's a call-in dispatcher response queue in the large pool. Each dispatcher has his own response queue. Fine. We can go to the VDoLer queue and see how the information is being processed, but this is not the time for that. On the network, and you will learn those. the response queue sends the response to the dispatcher. So that is what it is there. So now this particular shared server process will be placing the response in the calling dispatchers. Calling dispatcher is for this payload. This payload's response in the, okay, let's put it to full screen. Yes, so this shared server process who handles the particular finalize, we can say, because there can be multiple shared server processes in order to handle this request. So this one finalize the request, and maybe the last one who process last shared server process who complete the processing of the request. So he places the response in the response queue, which belongs to the dispatcher who initiate the request. And that is step number 5. Then step number 6 is sense the response. It should sense the one. So I think if you just go here, you can see number 6, the response queue sends the response to the dispatcher. That's what's going to happen. So response queue will be sending it to the dispatcher. Then finally, the dispatcher returns the completed request to the appropriate client process, client application, request to the appropriate client application. So that is what. So ultimately, step number 7 will take place, and 5, 6 happen now. Sends the request. This below response queue will send the request to relevant dispatcher, and dispatcher will be responding to the front-end application who initiated the request. Number 7. Hope you got the complete understanding of that process. Yeah, with that completes our large pool explanation actually. And above demonstrate the involvement of large pool in a shared server environment. That's okay. So that's the end of explanation on the large pool. Across 3 sessions, we did the explanation. And up next is database buffer cache. Okay. But it may be the next explanation may be with database buffer cache, or it may be Redulog, because we had to do the Redulog as well. So, but in the slide order it says the database buffer cache. But let me think about it and put. I think it's better to explain Redulog buffer and go to. And finally, we need to deep dive the entire architecture. Entire means the component interactions. So that will be the upcoming sessions, because we are going to see from the place the user make the request up to the entire process, like let's say select, update, commit, what's going to happen, what are the components going to interact, and the checkpoint, how the checkpoint take place, when the commit happens, what's going to happen. So that's in entire component interaction. The role of the shared pool, how it links to the buffer cache, the Redulog buffer, how it links, the when a log writer, DB writer, and then a commit happens, and how the checkpoint works. Everything has to put it into the one place, and we have to get the entire picture. So that's those upcoming sessions. Fine. So if you like the video, we can put a subscribe. So I will meet you soon in the next session. Okay. Have a great time. Bye bye.